welcome to ILTV's Elections Arena. I'm Aaron Porras, and today in the ring, a unity government is officially in the works. But what are its chances? Joining us to discuss is the Director of Public Activity with Peace Now, Yotam Yakoba, and Zohar Tal, political analyst and chairman of the Oz Zionist Foundation. Thank you both so much for joining us today. Now, in light of the growing coronavirus pandemic, Israeli leaders between the center-left and right-wing blocs have entered into unity coalition talks. But to do so, both the Blue and White and Labor Gesher Meretz parties had to first be dissolved. And already members in the current opposition have been blasting Netanyahu rival Benny Gantz for seemingly abandoning everything he stands for.
ראינו בארבעת הימים האחרונים הנפת דגל לבן על ידי חברינו להנהגת כחול לבן. וריצת עמוק בזחילה.
All right, now, Yotam, I actually want to start with you. Again, thank you guys for joining us today. Now, do you think that Ya'alon and Lapid and other members of the left are correct? Did Gantz turn his back on his voters?
I believe it's depend in the political argument inside blue and white. I think what Benny Gantz was standing in front was a dilemma because he couldn't be the leader of Blue and White once again if Blue and White didn't won the election or didn't have achieved to get the government. So basically, I think Benny Gantz thought mostly about Benny Gantz, and Ya'alon and Yair Lapid have the point of view of the entire party of Blue and White. So I believe the pressure inside what we call the cockpit, which is the combination of the coalition between the four leaders of Blue and White, is what led him to think mostly about himself, because it was take it or break it for Benny Gantz's point of view.
Well, but
so
is it
for the self-interest?
Well, but is it possible that maybe Benny Gantz joined the coalition also for his voters, because it's easier to effect change from within the government than from the opposition? Isn't that true?
I don't think so, because his main point or argument why he's doing so, it's because the coronavirus, the COVID-19, which this is the cause. But basically, in the political negotiation, he didn't ask or took any job or any position that relates to the corona situation. So I think he was mainly interested in getting some kind of political position of offices, of being a minister to change, because he's exhausted from 3 elections, one after the other.
All right, now Zohar, I want to hear from you now. You know, what's your take on this unity and its policies?
Yeah, well, look, Aaron, I think Gantz made the right decision because basically he had no other better options. The random majority that was formed was able to maybe to get the committees in the Knesset voted for, perhaps even vote for and nominate a speaker of the Knesset, but no more than that. He had no option to form a government, and that's the main issue. So what are the other options? Either go to a 4th round of election, nobody wants that, or to join a rotational unity government in which he has the option to take a major role, not in the personal way, but in a way that he currently lacks the ministerial experience, and doing so will give him that. And within a year and a half, he can become prime minister. So that's eventually what he wanted. By the way, most of the people who voted for him wanted that as well. So I think he made the right decision. And I have to add that in this critical situation, it's not a good idea to change leadership. And the leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu in these times is very good, is very, I'd say, very accurate in the measures that he's taking. I know that perhaps there is some criticism, but it's not a good idea to change leadership at this time, and I think going to a rotational unity government does that exactly.
All right, well, so let's talk for a second about the unity government's policies, because we have a lot of different parties here with a lot of different agendas. Is this going to last beyond the corona?
Well, I think it will have to last because, again, the impact on economy is huge and it will take time to repair. And by the way, I know that there are many in Israel that criticize Benjamin Netanyahu in his role as a Minister of Finance. But he's truly a very experienced leader in everything that is related to economy. And I think he is the right man to lead at this time. So I think because the economy and because the public will need some time to adjust to the new situation, it will last, I think, for 2 years, 2.5 years, which is a lot in Israel.
Yotam, what's your take on this, and maybe some of the other red lines from both Blue and White and from the Likud that might have to be compromised on?
So first of all, we need to understand that before the coronavirus came into our life, that the agenda, the thing that we talked about, the thing that bothered the Israeli public was basically a few things. It was the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, was the relation between the religion and the state, and it was about the economy's issues. And Blue and White could go into this unity, and I'm saying unity with a half a joke, because it's not a unity, it's a right-wing government with some member of Knesset that supported, because there's not going to be any change in policy that support or that has any connection between what the voters of Blue and White wants. They want agenda. They want to have any achievement in the terms of the way that we live here in Israel. And if they want to go and make a unity, they could say a unity because of the corona. They could say, okay, listen up. We're going to do a government only for 4 months. We're not going to do any changes that about any regards the annexation, about any situation between religion and state. They could put all kind of borders and all kind of points through this document, but they did so.
Well, but that's what they're negotiating now. But that's what they're negotiating now. The possibility of annexations is actually threatening to break up the unity talks.
No, it's not going to break the unity, because basically Benny Gantz, he already did the act that he cannot regret about it. Like, he has no way out of it. He basically showed his card. He could go with all Blue and White and say, we're going to do it together. But what he did basically is breaking up this coalition or this alliance that is very crucial for him. He basically finished his career as a leader. Now he's going to be a minister for maybe half a year, maybe a year, and then Netanyahu will find a way to throw him under the bus. I don't believe this coalition will hold another year, and basically Netanyahu now needs him. So when there's going to be an investigation about what happened here, how the state of Israel deal with this crisis, and he will say, he was I was the prime minister, but he was the secretary of treasury, he was the minister of defense. He will use them. He's going to use them as people to sacrifice in front of the public.
Zohar, do you want to weigh in on that? Because, Yotam is saying that Netanyahu is going to maybe find a way to prevent the rotational agreement and push his right-wing agenda, and that Benny Gantz won't be able to do anything about it. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say I don't have a crystal ball, so I cannot say what will happen. Will there be an investigation? What will happen that? We're still struggling in a crisis, and I think at this time unity is much more important than anything else. I'd expect left-wing supporters to understand that and to support the government as well. But one thing that you need to understand, and I think Yotam perhaps understands already, is that the left wing in Israel is very small. To paraphrase something that someone else said, there's almost no left. So Blue-White is not a left-wing party. It's a soft right party, let's say. Specifically, the guys that Gantz is bringing them along with him. Perhaps Yesh Atid is more leaning to the left. So
what about Labor's Itzik Shmuli and Amir Peretz? Because they're also defecting now. I mean, they're considered more left-wing, are they not?
Perhaps they understand that at this crucial time it's important to be united, and it is true that from within the government you have a lot of influence. So yeah, sometimes it takes a compromise, but that's what politics is all about. And I don't see the majority of the public really cares right now, or even before the coronavirus, about annexation or any of the other things that Yotam is advocating for, because the general public really cares about it less and less as long as the time goes on. And stability, economic stability, and the quality of life is something that the public cares a lot more, and the right-wing coalitions gave that to the public for a long time. And I think that's the reason the right wing is being elected over and over again.
What about the argument that Gantz has somehow lost negotiating power by breaking up the blue and white? Do you think that's true, or does he maybe still have some cards to play, like going back to fourth elections, or would that hurt him more?
Well, I think that's definitely incorrect, because you can see the battles within the Likud party itself. There are a lot of voices within the Likud saying that Netanyahu gave Gantz too much. That the whole idea of a partitional government in which blue-white gets half of the ministers, that's huge. That's enormous. It never happened before. So the leverage of Gantz was enormous. He had gotten to a best position that he could have maneuvered himself. And still, there is a way back. I mean, there is a way to go for fourth elections, but that won't benefit anyone. Not Gantz, but not the country, not anyone. So it was a bad decision to lead to fourth elections in the first place. And I don't think it's a better idea right now for anyone who cares for Israel, for the state itself. So yeah. I don't think Gantz will go there.
Yotam, how do you respond? I mean, it's true that blue and white under Gantz, the new blue and white under Gantz, is going to get pretty much every ministry they're asking for, at least the ratio of ministries. They are looking to get at least half of the ministry portfolios in negotiations here, and it is true that members on the right are very upset about that. So what does that say about your argument that he's somehow lost negotiating power?
I'm saying that 15 ministers, which is half, this is the start of the negotiation. He will get much less in the end of the negotiation. Basically, what happened is he broke he left the table from his alliance in blue and white when he got this starting point, but he will get less and less until he's going to sign the paper. And this is why it was a mistake. And for the sake of our viewers that are not from Israel, about what is a unity government in Israel. We don't have the Democrats and Republicans two big parties. We have about 10 parties in the Knesset. When we're talking about unity, we're talking about the two big parties in the center of map, which is supposed to be center left and center right, which is blue and white, and the Likud party join forces together. What we see here is Netanyahu a quarter of the blue and white, which is Hossein Israeli, which is Benny Gantz's party. So this is not a central or unity government, because this government represents the hard right, the settlers, the ultra-Orthodox, and the Likud, and some small amount of those metro-left party. So this is not quite a unity. I would call it a right-wing unity.
All right. Well, do you think that even a right-wing unity then will be ineffective? Are there too many hands in the cookie jar, so to speak? Too many different ideologies then in this broad unity, so to speak?
I think they have nothing to move forward. Or let's rephrase, the addition of Hossein Israel with Benny Gantz didn't change anything about the corona. Like Netanyahu could eventually achieve a government with some member of Knesset he could steal from Hossein Israel, like Hauser and Handel and Orly Levy, and he could have a 61 government, and he doesn't need another party for dealing or running the corona crisis. He needs them because he needs to use them. If you understand what I mean.
Well,
like
I think any prime minister would probably prefer to have more ministers in the government or MKs in the government than fewer. But I actually want to move on. Many critics right now about a different position, because we talked about ministerial appointments. Many people have now come out against United Torah Judaism's Yaakov Litzman as health minister. Above all else, they say that a trained physician should be in that position, and that Yaakov Litzman has really bungled this whole coronavirus, the fight against the coronavirus. Do you think that that's true? Why, and actually I'll go to Zohar. Why do you think Netanyahu is pushing so hard to keep Litzman in that position?
Well, first of all, it's funny because Litzman used to be the most popular minister in every survey. He used to be the most efficient, the most popular, the best minister there is. And you have to understand that his work as minister has nothing to do with his electoral power. He receives the same electoral power regardless of how he does as a minister. So I think it's a bit of hypocrisy. I mean, there's a crisis. The Ministry of Health is doing the best it could. It is not necessarily equipped to deal with the crisis in such a caliber, and it all goes down to Litzman. So I think the public or the critics are a bit unfair with regards to Litzman.
But then, do you disagree then that a trained medical professional would maybe be better equipped to lead that ministry, or at least to be his deputy?
Yeah, well, I think that it is possible to change the identity of the minister, but that's regardless of how he acts as the Minister of Health. But you have to see. I saw much more criticism about the Director General of the ministry, which is not a doctor. So perhaps the right solution would have been to start by assembling some kind of a committee that will hear everyone and do that. Now it is happening now, but it wasn't like that in the beginning. But I don't see why someone else would be better. I mean, the previous two ministers were Yael German and Yaakov Yazdi. Yael German from Yesh Atid was a disaster. Yaakov Yazdi from the Gimlaim wasn't any better. So I don't understand this criticism. But again, in a negotiation for forming a government, it's legitimate for Gantz to say, I want the Ministry of Health. In this, if it is a crisis dealing, then yes, it's legitimate.
Yotam, how do you respond to this? What do you think about the criticisms against him?
Okay, a few comments about that. First of all, it's true that Litzman got a high rate or high rating for popularity before the crisis, but we need to understand that he got those rates or this popularity because he stood very strong against corporate and commercial or big money pressure to change all kind of reforms regarding of the public health. We're talking about sweets, we're talking about those soda drinks, and he got a lot of points because he has no connection with big money, which is good. But this is routine, and in routine he got those points and he deserved them. But now we are in crisis, and he's not the man for the job. He has no, he doesn't have he doesn't have the sense, and he doesn't have the right knowledge for this. He's not the man that we want doing so. And
I think that there's an argument to be. I think that there's an argument to be made that his initial response could have been better or faster or more strict sooner. But what about his response now? Do you think that he's, maybe catching up, or that he's still missing the mark?
Listen, I'm not working in the health administration. I'm not a doctor. I'm not part of the system. But what I can see as a citizen, as a resident of Tel Aviv or a citizen of Israel, what I see is he's not controlling the material. He's not into it. He's out of the loop. This is what I see. But this is part of the image. I know everybody now is talking very high about Naftali Bennett, see him as a big deal, saying he's doing a great job. I'm listening to reporters just like you. I don't have inside information. But I want to talk about one more thing. The way that Netanyahu give minister jobs for everybody he's always, but always, some kind of a joke. He gives Miri Regev to be the culture minister. He gave Yoav Gallant, who did a building felony in his own backyard, to be the housing minister. He also always, he has a legacy and tradition of putting people that are not fit to their office just to make himself look great and strong and efficient. He doesn't groom under him no one that could match him because of political situation.
Well, but we also know that there are a lot of. I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we also know that there are a lot of negotiations from the other party leaders who are in these negotiations who say, no, I want X, Y, and Z. So it's not necessarily that Netanyahu is doling out and choosing final appointments for everybody within a vacuum. There are other people who are negotiating with him. Zohar, how do you?
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think the biggest joke was Yair Lapid as Minister of Finance, but that wasn't because of Netanyahu. That was because of Yair Lapid, who insisted on taking a job that he's completely unequipped to do. So that is the kind of pressures that you have to deal with when you are prime minister. And I think Netanyahu is dealing with it well. By the way, I think Netanyahu is putting himself at the front of dealing with the coronavirus, talking to the public by himself, not sending any spokesperson or anything like that. He is taking full responsibility of it, and I think it should be admired, regardless of the results. He is putting himself in there in order to deal with the crisis, which he thinks that is very major and very crucial.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you guys again for joining us today. Unfortunately, that is all the time in the elections arena that we have left. Zohar Tal, Yotam Yacobat, thank you. Stay healthy. And I hope to see you again soon. And of course, thanks to all of you who are watching from home for tuning in. Remember that for more news from ILTV, please follow us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. See you next time.